Good morning, friends. Of late, there have been apprehensions in the minds of the public about the independence of the higher judiciary, going by the things that are happening in and around the society. In this context, I would like to share my views on the subject Erosion of Judicial Independence, Executive Influence over the Supreme Court Collegium. My friends, India's constitution enshrines judicial independence as a cornerstone of democracy. The separation of powers ensures that the judiciary can act as a check on the executive and legislative branches, safeguarding civil liberties, minority rights, and rule of law. Yet, recent developments suggest that this independence is under threat. Over the last decade, the Supreme Court Collegium, responsible for the judicial appointments, transfers, and elevations, has increasingly come under shadow of executive influence, particularly from the Modi government. The Collegium system, promise and practice. The Collegium, composed of Honorable Chief Justice of India and senior Supreme Court judges, recommends appointments and transfers of judges in high courts and Supreme Courts. Constitutionally, the executive role is limited. It may clear the delay or request for reconsideration of the recommendations, but it is not supposed to dictate outcomes. In practice, however, the process is opaque. Reasons for decisions, modifications, or rejections are rarely published, leaving the public and legal community in the dark. This opacity allows political influence to creep in quietly, eroding the confidence and in the impartiality of the judicial administration. Recent cases of illustrating executive influence. Justice Atul Sridharan, 2025. In August 2025, the Collegium recommended transferring Justice Atul Sridharan from Madhya Pradesh High Court to Chhattisgarh High Court. Shortly afterward, the Union government requested a reconsideration. In an unusual move, the Collegium revised its recommendation, transferring Justice Sridharan instead to Allahabad High Court. The Collegium publicly acknowledged that the change was made on reconsideration sought by the central government. The revision materially reduced Justice Sridharan's seniority and administrative influence. Observers argue that this sends a chilling signal. Judges who rule against the government interests may face career consequences, undermining the principle of judicial independence. Then the next example, Justice Akhil Qureshi, 2019. Justice Qureshi's elevation provides an earlier example. Initially recommended as a Chief Justice of Madhya Pradesh High Court, his posting was modified after government input and he was sent to smaller Tripura High Court. Despite seniority and merit, he was never elevated to the Supreme Court. This modification highlighted how executive intervention can impact career progression and subtly influence judicial behavior. Then Justice S. Muralidhar, another classic example, 2020, and which was the disclosures were made in 2025. Justice Muralidhar was transferred from Delhi High Court in 2020 following his judgments in cases related to the Delhi riots. Subsequent reports suggest that repeated government pressure prior to the transfer. Such cases illustrate a chilling effect. Judges handling sensitive or politically inconvenient matters may face administrative repercussions. Patterns and implications. These cases reveal clear patterns. Executive leverage, request for reconsideration, delayed approvals, or file returns influence judicial postings. Opacity, the lack of public explanation for decisions reduces accountability and fosters perceptions of politicization. Career consequences, transfers and stalled elevations can act as an indirect sanctions on the judges perceived as independent. Institutional precedent, Repeated interventions risk normalizing a culture where Collegium anticipates executive preferences, eroding autonomy over time. The implications are profound. Judicial independence underpins the rule of law and public trust. Pursued subservience to the executive diminishes public confidence in impartial adjudication, particularly in cases concerning civil liberties, minority rights, and executive accountability. This is a threat to democracy. India's democracy depends on courts serving as impartial arbiters when other institutions fail. Yet, when administrative tools, transfers, stalled elevations, and modified recommendations are used to influence judicial behavior, the judiciary's independence is compromised. This erosion is subtle but systematic. Judges may self censor, fearing career repercussions for decisions perceived as unfavorable to the government. Restoring independence. Addressing these challenges requires transparency, accountability, and structural safeguards. Transparency first. The Collegium should publish reasons for any transfer, elevation, or modification following the executive input, preserving the confidentiality only where strictly necessary. Then merit and seniority. Clear, objective criteria should govern appointments and postings, ensuring administrative convenience does not override competence or seniority. Independent oversight. A small independent panel of retired judges or senior jurists or advocates could review contested transfers or modifications to provide procedural checks without politicizing appointments. These measures would reinforce public trust and protect the judiciary's ability to act as a true check on executive power. Recent controversies involving Justice Atul Sridharan, Justice Akhil Qureshi, and Justice S. Muralidhar, highlighting a worrying trend: the subtle but increasing influence of the executive over collegium recommendations. When the government can influence, delay, or amend the postings, even indirectly, judicial independence is compromised. Unchecked, this erosion risks creating a judiciary that hesitates to uphold civil liberties, rule of law, and constitutional accountability, the very pillars of India's democracy. Transparency, adherence to merit-based principles, and independent oversight are essential to safeguard judicial integrity and restore public confidence. Let us hope that the Honorable Supreme Court Collegium maintains its independence as a custodian of the Constitution. Let us hope for the better functioning of the higher judiciary in the coming days. Thank you very much.